Dave, good to have you here, and appreciate you coming over for this interview. What I'm trying to find out first is if you can tell us your story about how you got started on this journey that may or may not be cancer. So you had to take a blood test for a life insurance policy?
Yeah, I was looking to get some new life insurance, and I was going to cancel life insurance and get life insurance through the Knights of Columbus, since I'm a member of the Catholic Church. And anyway, as part of the process, they do a blood test and an EKG. Well, and this probably all started maybe in August, September, and
What year?
last year.
Okay.
Last year. And I got a letter from the insurance company denying the insurance because one of the issues was my PSA level was too high, or was above normal. Anything above a 4 was abnormal. I had a 6.4. So I made an appointment with the doctor and to follow up on it. And they did another blood test. And when that one came back, it was now up to a 7.5.
Real quickly, if I can interrupt you, when you found out the PSA levels, the first one was a
6.4,
and the second one
7.5.
within a month.
Within about maybe 6 weeks.
What were you feeling when those numbers came out like that?
Well, I always knew I had an enlarged prostate from previous medical exams. But of course, when you see those numbers and from the time when I got the first number from the Knights of Columbus from the insurance company, of course what's the first thing that comes to your mind is that I have prostate cancer, and that was stressful. But I really did. The only people who really knew about it was just my wife. I hadn't shared it with the kids, anything like that, because I didn't know anything, and I didn't want to worry anybody else needlessly. So then when I got the second results, now I'm even more concerned because it's gone up so much in such a short amount of time. Knowing, because I have a stepfather that 20 years ago got diagnosed with prostate cancer. And knowing that in most cases it's a slow-growing cancer, but when those numbers went up that fast, even though the doctor told me it could be many things, it doesn't necessarily mean cancer. That kind of goes in one ear and out the other because it's only natural for me, at least for me, to expect the worst. So. From there, when I got the second results, of course, he referred me to the urologist with the intention of having a prostate biopsy, because there's no other way they can diagnose the prostate cancer. The only way to diagnose it is through a biopsy. So I tried to make the appointment I did make the appointment at the urologist, and. Really, I saw a physician's assistant. The urologist was in surgery, and she didn't really do a whole lot other than tell me that, yeah, we're going to schedule you for a biopsy. So I went to make the appointment, and if I wanted to stay in that office, it was going to be like 3 months down the road. And I said, no, I don't want to wait that long. So they have multiple offices. So I went to an office in Corona. They got me in about a month. So of course, during that month, I'm like, I'm worried. My wife's worried. What could it be? I try to think about the other things that it could be, but at the same time, I'm still worried that it might be prostate cancer. Yeah. So a month or later, I had the biopsy, and if you want me to get into the biopsy, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Well, before you get into that, how old are you?
I'm 58. Yeah, 58.
Okay, so you're 58. So you're 58.
Right.
And you go and get you go and find out you have to have a biopsy because the PSA levels are high.
Right.
So usually when they find out your PSA level is over like a 4, they start wanting to do a biopsy.
Right.
So you had to wait a month before you could actually get the biopsy done?
Well, it was a month. It took probably a couple of weeks to see the urologist, and then the biopsy was a month after that. So it was probably maybe 6 weeks to 2 months from the time I got to refer to the urologist till I actually had the biopsy.
Which is not unusual because you have an HMO.
Right.
So they have to go with the referrals and things like that.
Correct.
So in between that time, one thing that I want to stress is that you had to wait that month. So initially, there's the stress of finding out your PSA is a certain level. Then there's the stress of finding out it went higher. Now there's the stress of having to wait a month before you can even get the biopsy. Then there's the stress of waiting to see the results of the biopsy.
Right.
So how did that make you feel in all that time?
Well, I mean, I was concerned. There was sleepless nights. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and I'd think about it. And I'm the type of person that I like to internalize a lot. I don't really share. I'm not big on sharing my feelings, and especially things are of concern. So, although my wife obviously is aware of what's going on, I wasn't really expressing to her the stress and the anxiety that I was feeling inside, because it's like, why worry her even more? So I really didn't share my feelings with her, but I internalized it a lot. I mean, it was stressful. It was, like I said, sleepless nights, a lot of anxiety. I mean, unfortunately, work was kind of a distraction. Going to work and then those are the times I didn't have to think about it. But it was, and every time I went to the doctor, my blood pressure was sky high every time I'd go to the doctor, and I've never been one with high blood pressure. My blood pressure was sky high, and so I mean, of course, then that worries you too. It's like, well, gosh, now my blood pressure's high, and it goes, everything that goes along with that. So, but anyway, like I said, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of, I guess because I didn't want to share with the other people. I kind of felt, maybe like alone, that there's something because I hadn't shared with my kids yet because I didn't know anything. So, anyway. So the kids,
only your wife knew about the biopsy?
Well, no. Once I had the biopsy scheduled, that's when I told them about it, what was going on. I did call some family members to see if prostate cancer ran in the family, because I wasn't aware of any, and it doesn't. So I mean, that kind of made me feel a little bit better. But at the same time, it's like, well, it's got to start in a family somewhere, So. Like I talked to my brother and I talked to my dad, and none of the men in our family, have ever had, prostate cancer. So, like I said, once a biopsy was scheduled, I shared it with a little more of the family. As far as friends and stuff like that, I didn't. I obviously shared it with you because the experiences that you had gone through, and watching your videos and kind of educating myself, and which kind of helped, kind of knowing what I was going to be going through, and what the process was, so anyway, that's kind of.
So a month later, you had the biopsy,
right?
And you're sharing with me about the experience with the biopsy, and it was a little different than mine. Why don't you go into the biopsy part?
Well, like I said, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. A lot of the things that you described in your previous video, happened to me, but it was kind of, I don't know, now I say kind of funny, but at the time it wasn't. I remember I was laying on the table in the doctor's office waiting for him to come in to do the biopsy, and I was laying there with laying on my side, my rear end's hanging off the side of the bed, and I'm laying there thinking, I'm thought, you know what, this just got serious, because I'm the type of guy, and probably being prior law enforcement like Ken, we deal with stress by making jokes. Oh yeah, I'll be gone soon. Yeah, fam, don't worry about it. You get the insurance. I mean, that's kind of how a lot of law enforcement officers deal with stress and anxiety. But as I was laying there, I thought, man, this is getting serious. Well, there's a nurse in the office. Next thing I know, she doesn't say a word, nothing. She sticks her finger at my rear end, and I'm like, whoa! And then she tells me, oh, that's a numbing agent. I'm like, okay. So she didn't say, I'm going to do this. No, she just did it. Anyway, so the doctor comes in and numbs the area where they're putting the needle in for the biopsy. Didn't feel that.
And that's with another needle.
Right. I mean, it's like, I don't know, lidocaine probably to numb the area where they're going to put the needle in to do the biopsy. I didn't feel any of that. When he stuck the needle in to start doing the biopsy, didn't feel that. They take 12 samples, 6 from each side of the prostate. The 6 on one side, I didn't feel that. I mean, you could feel when it took the sample, because you feel like a little jolt, but it didn't hurt. The other side, the first 3, same thing, didn't feel. The next 3 were a little painful, like a snap of a rubber band, kind of. So, which I thought was kind of odd. And then it was over. I mean, it was over, and of course they've got the probe, the ultrasound probe that they put up your rectum, so the doctor can see where he's taking the biopsy from. And anyway, that wasn't fun. That was probably the most painful part of it.
That's the size of a submarine sandwich.
It felt like, yes. Even though it wasn't, but that was the most uncomfortable part.
Yeah.
It was sort of because it seems like they're moving it around a lot, to get an angle or whatever. So that was probably the worst part of it. Anyway, then once he was done, got up, left, and said I would know the results in about a week. And of course that was even a more stressful time. Because now it's like, okay, now that this has gotten real, they've done the biopsy, what's going to happen? What am I going to come, what's going to come back? Is it cancer? Is it not? The doctor told me that I have an unusually large prostate for a man my age. He says it's about 4 times the size of the normal man my age would be, because, men as they get older, their prostate enlarges, but mine's like 4 times the size. And he said that could very well have been the reason why your PSA level was so high.
And that is a little unusual, because we spoke about that. And I was saying when I found out the size of my prostate, it's like 30 millimeters, nice and round and smooth and all that kind of stuff. And they said 30 millimeters, but yours is
about 140.
140.
Right.
It's millimeters?
Millimeters, centimeters? I don't know.
Like that. But
meters?
It is.
Meters?
And normally speaking, a man, as you get older, your prostate just enlarges, period.
Right.
And it starts pushing on the urethra and the bladder, and that just causes problems all on its own.
Right.
But you're unusually larger prostate, which could be why the PSA level is high, or whatever. So you're kind of in a limbo stage anyways. And then you get the biopsy, and you were mentioning that it got real all of a sudden,
right? Because
now you did the biopsy, and now you have to wait to find out if it's cancer,
right?
And that causes a lot of stress.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And now I'm since most of the family knows, of course they all want to know the results and how the biopsy went. And I called everybody and told them how it went, and I wouldn't know for a week. And during that week's time, it was it was even more stressful, even more anxiety, because you're expecting the worst. So it was more sleepless nights, more kind of quiet time, internalizing everything that was going on. Stressful for the wife, because she's obviously trying to just stay strong and supportive, and because nobody wants to have cancer. I guess if you got to have cancer, that's it's probably one of the better ones to have, because of the slow growing and the curability and that sort of thing. But nobody wants to be diagnosed with cancer.
So then you said it was a week later you got the
about a week later I got the results.
So now you're going in that week later, and you're going, I'm going to go in, I'm going to find out I either don't have cancer or I have cancer.
Right.
But what happened to you?
They don't know if I have cancer or if I don't have cancer.
What was the diagnosis?
What the diagnosis was is they found some abnormal cells on one of the biopsies, and what they're calling it is, and it's the initials are ASAP, ASAP. It's Atypical Small Acinar Proliferation is what it's called.
Which to somebody who's dealing with biopsies, what does that mean to
It's just abnormal cells. They're not, they're not normal, they're not cancerous. And what the doctor said that could be is, he says it could be like precancer, precancerous cells. So what they've done is I get to have another biopsy in 6 months. Well, now it's going to be in August. I have to have another biopsy. And the doctor said the results of that could show it hasn't changed. I still have those abnormal cells. It could go away, or that could have been, precancerous and I could have prostate cancer. So now I'm having to wait, now it's down to about 4 months, but I'm still now I have to wait another 6 months for another biopsy. So I still don't know. So I'm still dealing with that stress and anxiety and of, what are they going to find in 6 months? I mean, at least before I only had to wait a month for the biopsy. And the doctor said they normally do the biopsy anywhere from 6 months to the second biopsy, anywhere from 6 months to a year. He prefers to do them at 6 months. So, now I'm stuck in limbo. So I don't know. I don't know if what's going to happen from that. So now it's, a 6 month waiting period that.
Did the doctor mention with this type of diagnosis that could he rule out cancer?
No.
So did he say you don't have cancer?
Well, I guess technically, yeah, I don't have cancer. I just have the abnormal cells, and it was just in one of the 12 biopsy samples that they took. It was just in one of the 12. So, he said that, I think he said there's like a 6 to 30% chance it could turn into prostate cancer.
So when people get diagnosed with prostate cancer, there could be a percentage of chance that it could advance. Most cancers will advance at some point.
Right.
But with this diagnosis, there's a 6 to 30% chance that you could get cancer.
Right. It could develop into prostate cancer.
So what does it mean, or have you researched it, or did the doctor mention what are these abnormal cells? Why, what does that mean?
He really couldn't give an explanation as to why abnormal cells. I've researched it a little bit, and there's really no explanation that I could find that as to why it does that. Based on his experience and his knowledge, chances are it's not going to develop into prostate cancer, but he doesn't know. He can't predict. Every patient's different.
So with regard to prostate cancer being very slow growing, this diagnosis could or could not be cancer, or could not advance, or because it doesn't sound like it's nothing. So we don't, based on your research and what the doctor said, it kind of makes you scratch your head and go, well, what is it?
Right.
So you really don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what would cause abnormal cells. Maybe it's related to the size of my prostate. I don't know, because it is abnormally large. But it would be nice if I was given a definitive diagnosis. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you don't. No, you're not going to. I'm kind of in limbo. So I'm have to wait and see.
So has this? Have you talked to your kids about it, and your wife, and have you told them about it all?
Yeah, they everybody knows everything. All my family knows. My wife's family, they know. Haven't shared a whole lot with all my friends, just close friends, but it's not something I'm posting on Facebook right now.
Yeah.
But I've shared it with my brother. Because even though we have different dads, we have the same mom. So don't know if this is just strictly something that's passed on among males, or So my brother knows, and my dad, like I said, my dad has never had an issue, any prostate issues. So.
And you said that you don't have any indication that there's even anything wrong. I mean,
Right. I mean, other than the typical, not being able to urinate, like I'm 18 again. Mm-hmm. That's and that sort of thing has been going on for years, and never really been an issue. So for right now, they've got me on medicines for that. They do have me on a medication that's supposed to shrink the prostate. So,
do you remember the name of that medication?
I can't think of the generic name, but it was Proscar, Proscar. If I remember correctly, is what the I guess originating name of it was.
How's that been working for you?
I'm on that and the Flomax, and it's helped. I'm not up quite as often at night. I've got a better stream at night. Daytime's not really any issues. It's usually the nighttime issues. Getting up, I was getting up 3 or 4 times a night. Now I'm maybe 1 or 2. One, if I'm lucky. So it seems to be helping.
When before this life insurance test that you had to take for the PSA, had you been regular at all about getting your PSA tested, or did you even know about any of that?
Well, I knew about the PSA because like I said, my stepfather has prostate cancer. I mean, he's had it for 20 years, and he's still doing fine. But the other part about exams, that sort of thing, I'm not a big person to go to the doctor. I never have been, and this has kind of opened my eyes where I should probably be a little more involved in my health and going to the doctor and more often. And I've had prior to this, it'd probably been maybe a couple years since I had a blood test. And I know that that has always been checked in the past. It's just a typical blood, and it never been an issue. It was just until this time last year that it became an issue. So, I'm like I said, I'm not a big person to go to the doctor, but now that I'm getting older, I need to start being more actively involved in my own health.
And one thing that I was curious about with you is that when you first heard about the PSA results, the very first one, you probably didn't think too much about it. And then when you found out the second PSA results and that you had to have a biopsy done, what was your mindset at the time? Did you? Because I know when I found out that I had to get a biopsy, my mind just all of a sudden went, "Do I have my life insurance in place? What happens if something happens?" Did you go through any of that?
No, not so much. I mean, like I said, I was looking to replace some life insurance, but I still had, even though I was going to be replacing life insurance, and they had denied me, I still had other life insurance, so I wasn't too concerned about that. I didn't get so much into the mortality aspect of it. Oh, I've got cancer. I could be dying soon. That sort of thing. I didn't really get into that, and probably because my knowledge of prostate cancer, that it is slow growing. I do have a stepfather that has it. What you've been going through, I'm just just kind of educating myself. I wasn't too concerned about I've got prostate cancer, but it's spread throughout my body, because that's rare, and that's usually because it hasn't gone detected for years. So I wasn't too concerned about that I was going to die, but you never want to hear that you have cancer, and then I think one of the biggest fears I think I had with this is like say it was bad enough that they had to go in and take out my prostate. Then I started thinking about, well, impotency. Am I going to have to wear a catheter the rest of my life? And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know, for some reason the idea of wearing a catheter the rest of my life, I'm like, I don't want that. I don't know. It may sound weird. I don't know, but that was one of the weird. It's like, God, I couldn't imagine. Because I know people that have to wear a catheter, for the rest of their life, and I've great sympathy for them, but for myself, I'm like, God, I don't know how they do it. So anyway, but that's like I said, I didn't think I was going to die, but but it's still in the back of your mind.
And how are you? How's it with the family? Are it seems like a kind of a more light sense of nobody really knows right now, because you have to do the biopsy. How is the family dealing with it?
I think they're dealing with it pretty good. It was kind of funny. A little side story. We had a surprise birthday party for our sons. They have twins, and they turned 30, so we had a surprise party, and we were trying to figure out a way to get them over to the house so they could be surprised. And my wife was talking to one of our sons, and it's like, oh, we need you to to come over to the house. You guys come over to the house before we go out to dinner at 1:30 in the afternoon. Or whatever it was, 12:30 or whatever. And my son says, "What's wrong? What's wrong with Dad?" Is there, like, no, it's none of that. So anyway, I'm even though we don't, it doesn't monopolize the conversations. I'm sure that they're concerned too, and that what's going to happen with the outcome. So anyway, it's kind of a little lighthearted story about that. So
really, in you have to go for another biopsy in August 2018.
Right.
And you don't know if that'll turn up anything.
Nope. The doctor says like I said, the results could be the same, still have abnormal cells, could have developed into cancer, or those abnormal cells could go away and there won't be any issue.
And do you have to take another PSA before then?
That's a good question. He didn't order one, so I don't think so. But that's a good question. The subject was never brought up.
Well, so what again is the name of this diagnosis?
It's Atypical Small Acinar Proliferation.
And for the layman, that is kind of a prostate.
Abnormal prostate cells.
So kind of a purgatory for prostate stuff.
If somebody wants to look it up, go to like Google and put prostate, and then just put in ASAP. It'll pop right up and tell you, and you can read about it and what kind of give you a general idea of what it is.
I think a lot of people will be surprised because it's not something you hear a lot about.
Right.
And you have to purposely look it up.
Right.
So, in closing, is there anything that you would share with people about, not about this particular diagnosis, because it seems kind of unusual. Is there anything you would share with men about prostate cancer prevention, or that you might just share from your experience about someone who might be has to have a prostate biopsy scheduled, just as far as mentally and like that?
Well, first off, don't be afraid to go to the doctor. And not that I was ever afraid to go to the doctor, but don't, especially as we get older, we get into our 50s, just to make sure you go to the doctor and get checked. Of course, the digital exam is, it's not fun, but it doesn't hurt. And get the blood tests. That way, at least one thing I kind of look at is, had I not decided to try to replace some life insurance, I probably wouldn't even be sitting here having this conversation. I may have gone another couple of years and not gone to the doctor, and had the blood test, I kind of look at it as, maybe me looking for this insurance might have saved my life. I know that's kind of a drastic, perspective on it, but, what if I would have waited 2 more years and, when I really started having issues and then went to the doctor and they're like, well, yeah, you've had prostate cancer for 2 or 3 years, and now it's progressed to the point where we have to do something more radical than like what you've gone through with with the radiation pellets and that. I mean, so, you know, I kind of jokingly say, yeah, maybe it might have saved my life. So don't be afraid to do it. Just get it done. It's not that bad. You know, if you have to go and have a biopsy, like I described before, it wasn't that bad. It was, you know, I had in my mind it was going to be a lot worse, and it wasn't. I know it's a scary time, and it's, you know, very concerning, and, you know, not knowing what results are and the outcome and all that. But as far as the biopsy itself, it was a piece of cake. I mean, I'm not as stressed going the next time to have the biopsy. Of course, I'm stressed about what the results will be, but for the biopsy itself, that's not going to bother me, unless the nurse warns me next time.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for stopping by, and I think
thanks for having
this
me.
will be helpful for a lot of men who may get diagnosed with this as well. That it is out there.
Yeah.
That this diagnosis is, I think people think they're going to get either no cancer or I have cancer.
Right.
And
that's exactly what I thought. I'm going to go in there and they're say, yeah, you have it, or no, you don't. Not knowing that there was the third option of, well, we don't know.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Well, I appreciate it. And all right.
My pleasure.